I said, if everything she says come true, then my girlfriend. So I quick called my girlfriend, and I called her. She said, hello. And I said, hey, tell me something. Just tell me the truth. Do you have 3 kids? And the phone went silent. And then she said, who told you? I said, no, this can't be. I've been seeing you for about a year and a half. No way. Do you have 3 kids? Did you hear me? Do you have 3 kids? She said, yes, but who told you? And I said, my dead mother told me.
Today's guest is Dennis Bolick. How are we doing, Dennis?
Great, great, Tyler.
Good
How are
morning
you?
from the U.S.
All right. Good morning from Switzerland.
You've got quite the resume. Can you tell us a little background?
Well, I had 2 major spiritual events, and before that, I was just a singer and a saxophone player.
I watched a couple videos of you on stage. It was beautiful, really.
Oh, thanks, man.
You've
Thank
got a
you.
good voice and some talent.
Thanks. I was lucky. I had a very good opportunity to study and work with some really great people.
You work with Quincy Jones. Quincy's worked with one of my favorite artists, Sinatra. I find that pretty impressive. Let's jump into it. I'd like to know kind of your views and what your life was before any experiences you had.
Well, basically, I was just a musician and artist that was obsessed with trying to be successful. I didn't have any religious views at all. I was brought up a Christian, but more like a holiday Christian. That means we went to church only on holidays or stuff like that. And I didn't even go to church after I was maybe 14 or 13. I had stopped going. So I was not religious at all. And, that was my life. I was living in Philadelphia, and also lived a little bit in New York also. And basically that was it. My father was a Marine and a police officer, and also a prison guard. My father was like very disciplined, very dutiful type of father. He would just say, "What do you want for your birthday? Here's your birthday gift. What do you want for your Christmas? Here's your Christmas gift." That was it. It was not so an emotional contact, whereas my mother was the opposite. She was full of love and light and joy, and she always told me, look out the window and early in the morning and listen to the birds, see how beautiful the trees are. And she was the joy and light of my life.
Can you take me into your first spiritual experience?
Okay, so the first experience I had to do with my mother. Well, my mother, she quit her job to marry my father, and she saved for 3 years to buy me my first saxophone. So me and my mother, we were like really, really super close. She was, like I said, the joy and light of my life. Until one day she got sick and then she died. And when she died, it's like somebody turned out the lights in my life. I was living in Montreal, Canada at that time. And once she died, I didn't care whether I lived or died. But I didn't care if a car hit me or not. I would go to the bar every night and drink and then come back home, sit on the side of my bed, turn out the light and cry myself to sleep. That was my routine for about a week and a half. Until one night, I came back home from the bar, like ready to do my routine. I came in my room and I turned out the light, sat on the side of my bed, and I was about to untie my sneaker. When I looked on the floor, I saw that there was light, and I said, that's impossible. I just turned out the light. Now, here's the crazy part. When I looked up, the sun that you see in the sky was in my room, and it was like a wave of love hit me. It was like, the only way to describe it is if you're in the ocean and you have a wave that's too tall for your body and just covers your whole body. Well, imagine the water to be love. It was like that, like a wave of love just covered me like that. And my mouth, I was just open like that. And then out of this sun, which I later discovered was God, these 2 stars came out of this sun. And one star was bigger and one was smaller. And they floated out to me. And the smaller star I recognized to be my mother. And the first thing I said to her was, Mom, it's like that over there. Because to me, even though we were raised Christian, for me, it was like she had just disappeared. She died, but she didn't. It's like I didn't know where she was. So that's the first thing I said. It's like that over there, Mom, because there was so much love It was the only way I can describe it. Imagine you win the lottery for $1 billion and you're in Hawaii and you're surround on the beach and you're surrounded by nothing but people who love you times 100. That's how it felt. So she began to talk to me like I'm talking to you. I could hear her just like you can hear me now. The only exception was that when she would talk to me, it was like somebody was like shooting the conversation into my body. I could like feel the conversation in my body. And the first thing she said was, I'm going to tell you a week in the future so you know that this is not an illusion or a fake. And she said, you're going to get a job next week. Now, my band, we hadn't worked in about 2 or 3 weeks. She said, you're going to get a job next week. And she said, there's going to be a bouncer or doorman there. He's going to be a homosexual and a psychopath. She said, whatever you do, don't get into an argument with him or you will make these. Now, this part, she started to talk like Captain Kirk of the Enterprise. She said, you're going to make one of these timelines happen. The first timeline, he kills you. The second timeline, you would kill him, but you go to jail for the rest of your life. Now, she said, one of these two timelines will happen if you get into an argument with him. So I told her, I said, look, Mom, I'm so happy to talk with you right now. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I said, I do whatever you tell me to do. Now, I don't have anything against people who are gay or homosexual or lesbian or whatever. As long as if they know that I'm not and they come after me, of course I'm going to defend myself. That's just the way I am. And my mother knew that. That's why she told me don't get into an argument. Because I was not the type of person to go around starting trouble, but if trouble came to me, I could handle it. So she told me that, and I told her, no, Mom, I'm just going to do exactly what you say, whatever you tell me to do. I'm doing exactly what you say. And then she told me also, she said, and your girlfriend that you've been seeing, she has 3 kids you don't know about. And she said she's going to try to have a fourth kid with you, like trap you in some way. So be careful about that. And I said, okay, I will, I will. And then she paused, my mother. She stopped talking. And then I said, but Mom, who's this other light next to you? Because there was another light next to her about 7 feet tall. Okay. And when I asked her about this light spoke to me. It said, I'm an escort. And the exact words it said was, I'm escorting your mother to the earth plane. And this is an interruption in your life. Now I said, an interruption. I said, I mean, it's like Star Wars in my room right now. I said, I want to know some answers. I said, I want to know, why am I here? Who's going to be my wife? How many kids I'm going to have? All these life questions. And this, I called it like an angel. It said, I'm going to, and it talked very calm, like very calm. It says, I'm going to tell you all the answers to your questions, but you won't be allowed to remember only what your mother tells you. So it told me all the answers that I wanted to know, man. But I couldn't remember. I only was allowed to remember what my mom told me. So after that, my mom said that I'm going to be around you always, but you won't be aware of me as much as you are tonight. And then she said, I love you. And then and this light began to go back into the sun. And like an ice cube in a glass, like an ice cube would melt slowly in a glass. That's how the light started to go away. And it slowly started to get darker and darker and darker until my room was completely dark. And then when my room was dark, tears, man, just burst out my eyes because I knew that nobody is going to believe this happened. Nobody in their right mind is going to believe this happened. Nobody's going to believe me. That was the whole thing. Nobody was going to believe me. But I have the proof. Now, the next day, my band called me and they said, hey, man, we got a job. Now, I didn't dare tell my band what had happened the night before because I knew that they would just say, oh, he's a good singer, a good saxophone player. But since his mom died, man, he lost it. So I didn't tell them nothing about that. So I said, oh, we got a job. So I hung up the phone and then we met for what we call a sound check. Now, for people who don't know what a sound check is, it's when the musicians, singers, they all go and test the sound equipment a couple hours before the show to make sure everything is functioning properly and correctly and it sounds good. So we did our sound check. We went to the club and it was a new club. And as I went in, there was 2 bouncers, but nothing happened. They didn't bother us or nothing. So we did the sound check, no problem. We left and we came back that night for the gig, for the job. Now we came in, those bouncers were there, nothing, they didn't bother us. We did our first set, really great, people enjoyed it, and we were on our break. to do before we do the second set. And I was standing like this talking to my band. Okay. The band was here, it was me talking with them. And this bouncer walks behind me and he just grabs my butt and walks into the corner of the club. And I'm talking to him, hey, man, I said, guys, did you see this guy just like grabbed my butt, man? And they told me no, because I was in the way for them to see the grab. They only could see the guy past me, but they couldn't see the grab. So I was angry and I said, man, I got to tell this guy something, man. He can't be touching me, man. So I was going over there angry. Then I said, oh, yeah, remember mom, remember mom. Don't forget, man. Don't lose it, man. Keep your cool. Don't lose it. Don't get into an argument. Don't lose it. So I slowed down walking over there and I finally got to him and I said, hey, man, I'm not like that. Please don't touch me. And he said, I didn't touch you, man. You had too many beers. And I said, no, man, you touched me, but I'm not like that. Please don't touch me. And he said, why'd you tell your friends? And I said, I told my friends because you touched me. So I'm telling you, I'm not like that. Please don't touch me. Then I walked away because if I stayed longer, the conversation was going to go right in the direction that my mother had warned me about. So I went away, walked away from him. And then we went on to do the second set. And after the second show, I didn't hang around because I didn't feel good at that place with this guy. And because these bouncers are huge. I'm 6'2". This guy made me look like one of his arms. So yeah. So I left. I left the club. I passed him and on the way out, and I left the club. Next day, my band calls me and they said, "Did you hear what happened?" I said, "No. I left. Everything was cool when I left." He said, "Remember that guy, that bouncer that you told us that passed you and he grabbed your butt?" I said, "Yeah." He said, that guy got into an argument with the club owner and crushed both of his rib cages, and he is now in jail for manslaughter. The club owner died, and my mouth went open, man. I said, what? He said, yeah, man, this guy was a psychopath. And I still didn't tell them what I knew because my mom had already told me that. And I said, okay, man, wow, that's sad because the club owner, was a real nice guy, cool guy. And it seems that they had gotten to an argument, you see. And that's how they started to fight, and he crushed both of his rib cages, and the guy died. Anyway, I hung up the phone and I said, wow, everything my mom said is coming true. I said, if I had gotten to an argument with this guy, that probably would have been me. So I said, if that's true, then what about my girlfriend? Oh, I said, if everything she says come true, then my girlfriend. So I quick called my girlfriend and I called her. She said, hello. And I said, hey, tell me something. Just tell me the truth. Do you have 3 kids? And the phone went silent. And then she said, who told you? I said, no, this can't be. I've been seeing you for about a year and a half. No way. Do you have 3 kids? Did you hear me? Do you have 3 kids? She said, yes, but who told you? And I said, I'm going to tell you who told me. My dead mother told me. And I said, if you had told me about the kids, maybe I would have accepted them. There would have not been a problem. But you lied for like a year and a half, almost 2 years. I said, you denied your own kids. I said, I don't know what else you might be hiding, so we're finished. So then I hung up the phone. And that was my first major spiritual event. And that was something like, I didn't know what to think about that, because it's like, I just knew that first thing, that there's much more to life than what I thought it was. And
Did
I
you tell
thought,
anybody after that?
no, because I figured that nobody's going to believe me. And I said, I'm not going to tell anybody about that. I'm going to try to go back to normal life. It was all too much for me. I couldn't understand. I couldn't handle it. I only was happy. The only thing that it did do was I stopped drinking, because I knew my mother was fine. She was more than fine. She was happy. She was powerful. She knew everything and she was great. So that was the only thing. I just wanted to know that she was okay, because it's like she died and disappeared out of my life. And I didn't know what happened to her. That was my whole hang up. But now I knew she was okay and she was on this other world, and she had powers and she knew things, and she was fine. She was around love like not even of this earth. So I said, she's fine. So that made me feel secure again. So I figured I'm gonna try to live life a little bit normal, try to go back to normal life, man. So I started to be a mentor to this singer. Now they had this group called the Platters, but this is not the original Platters, because that's too old for me. But they did a remake of a Platters group, and he was the lead singer, and I started to follow him. He was a great singer. I mean, one of the best, and he had record deals in Germany, here, France, and Canada, America. He was doing really great. So I started to follow him, and I was singing background vocals for him and stuff like that. And he was teaching me stuff about vocals and stuff until one day he offered me drugs. So I started to do drugs with him, even though I'm not so proud about that. But I thought that that was the way. And I thought, hey, he's successful, he's doing great. And so it must be the way to get to success was this way. So I started doing drugs with him. And then one weekend, he just dropped it. And for me, that was like my wake up call. And I said, if you continue to do drugs like he was doing, you're going to drop dead too. And I said, so I stopped drugs cold turkey. I didn't go to no rehab or no nothing. I just stopped cold turkey. And I said, I'm going to replace it with marijuana. And I said, smoke a joint once a month, twice a month. That's okay. So that's what I did. So one day with my new girlfriend, we ran out of marijuana. Now, I don't know if you know, but most musicians, no matter what city you put them in, no matter what country you put them in, they know how to get marijuana. They know how to get it. So I just called my friend and I said, hey, do you have any marijuana? He said, yeah, sure. I got some. He said, I'll bake it in a cake and I'll bring it over to you. So I said, cool, man, because I said, I never had it in a cake before. I mean, I always smoked it. I never had it in a cake. So what I didn't know is that he must have poured the whole kitchen sink in this thing, tons and tons and tons of marijuana in the cake. But I didn't know it at the time. So he brought over a cake. It was a chocolate cake. And he brought it over to my apartment and left it there with me and my girlfriend, and he left. So I cut her a piece and I cut myself a piece, and we both ate the cake. And we waited 10 minutes and nothing happened. And I said, do you feel anything? She said, no, I don't feel nothing. I said, me neither. I said, maybe we have to eat more cake. So this time I cut half. I cut half the cake to her and the other half the cake to me. And because we wanted to get high. And I said, probably we didn't eat enough, because I thought that he'd maybe put just a little bit of marijuana and it wasn't enough. That's why we don't feel it. So we had to eat more cake. So so she ate her half and I ate my half and we waited 10 minutes and then we didn't feel anything again. And I said, you don't feel nothing? She said, no, I don't feel nothing. I said, it must be a bad batch or something. I said, that's strange. I mean, we ate the whole cake and we don't really feel anything. But then another 10 minutes went by and we started to feel something. But it wasn't like we were getting high. It was more like our bodies began to shut down. Like, for example, I would be talking to her and then I would forget to breathe. Would forget to breathe. And then it was becoming difficult for me to move. And she suggested, she said, maybe you should call 911 while we still can, because it was hard for me to move and I was beginning to not forgetting to breathe and all this craziness. So I called 911. I said, how can I help you? But this is kind of the embarrassing part because I had to say, well, we think we had too much marijuana in a cake. Can you come please save us? We think we're dying here. And so they said, okay, we'll be right over. Now, what I didn't know is that if you call 911 and it has to do with any narcotic, they call the police first. And the police comes first and then they come. So the police came over, but we had eaten all the cake, so there was nothing to charge us with. So they left. And then the ambulance came. Now, this happened at 4 o'clock in the morning, by the way. We lived on the third floor, and it was like a stairwell case. Imagine, and it was right in front of our neighbors, the first floor and second floor, they had a big window. So they could see that the stairwell was right in front of the window. Imagine at 4 o'clock in the morning, you hear lights flashing, sirens, and they're carrying us down in separate stretchers. Now, when they arrived, I was like barely able to move. I was trying to push my heart to keep beating until they got here because it was quite serious. And I knew that I didn't have much time. So they got here and they put us down in separate stretchers. And as they were carrying us down with all the lights flashing, I could see my neighbors peeking through the window saying, what happened to them? And it just looked wild. It looked like a scene out of David Bowie, Mick Jagger overdosing. It just looked wild, man. Totally wild. And so they put us in the ambulance and they rushed us to the hospital. And when we arrived at the hospital, as they passed me through past the reception, I saw my dead mother again. Now, she had this like uniform or like shirt that she used to wear when she was in her women's club. They had a women's club, like 12 women They would play bingo or they would go on trips together and stuff like that. And she had this shirt on. And that's how I knew it was her. And as they rolled me by in the stretcher, I said, that's funny. There's mom. Now, what I didn't realize at that point was that I was so close to death at that moment. That's why I could see her. I could see her as clearly as I see you right now. And so they rolled me past the reception and into a room, a hospital room, and they took my girlfriend into another room and they sat me on the bed and they gave me this black drink to drink. I thought it was tar, but later I found out it was charcoal drink. And they took my girlfriend in another room. And then they left my room because it seemed like my girlfriend was having some kind of complications. But anyway, so I sat on the side of my bed, my hospital bed, and I drank this drink, and it tastes horrible, man. So I drank this drink down, and I was like very happy because I said, oh, I'm gonna live, man. I'm gonna live. I'm gonna live. I think I'm gonna live. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it. So I drank the drink down and I began to relax, lay down on the bed, hospital bed, and I began to relax. And as I'm relaxing, all of a sudden, I start to hear my heartbeat as if somebody took my heart and put it right in my ear, right in front of my ear. And it started to beat like this. Boom, 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 boom. And when it did the last beat, I jumped out of my body like I would jump out of this chair. I jumped out of my body like that. And I said, I'm out. And I was looking at my hand and I could see I was standing and my body was laying down in the bed. I could see my leg laying on the bed, but I'm standing and I'm looking at my hand and my hand had this kind of gray, light blue tint all around it. I mean, it's like, I don't know if you know the emergency broadcasting system, but a long time ago, it used to come on. If you watch TV past 12 o'clock, it would just go into static because there was only like four channels and there was no more programming. Now, in that static, you can see colors, and that's sort of how my hand looked. Not like static, but it looked like this kind of color that was like luminescent. And it was gray, but light blue tint around it. And I was just looking at my hand like this. And then I heard a drop of water because there was a sink in my hospital room, and the drop of water was boop, 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 and for some odd reason, man, my to a soul, my curiosity was like at 1,000, and to a soul, a drop of water was the most amazing thing that you could see. As soon as I heard it, I said, oh, a drop of water, wow. And the minute I thought about the water, my vision went directly in front of the sink and then back to where I was standing. And then, as if I was remembering, it's like, Tyler, if I gave you a bike 20 years from now and you don't ride a bike for 20 years, you're still going to be able to know how to ride the bike. It was like that. I was like remembering, and I wanted to stop time because I wanted to see that water because it was dripping fast. I couldn't see it. So I moved my hand just across the air, just like this, and the water froze in midair. I stopped time, and then I could see the water. But to a soul, that wasn't a big thing. To a soul, it was like, oh yeah, okay. And then I said, I'd like to see that water from every angle. And then I opened my hand just like this, and five of me appeared at the sink. One was on the right, one was on the left, one was underneath the sink, one was watching them, and another one was watching them. And I was watching all five. And when I would close my hand, they all would suck back to me into one, just like that. And I kept doing it. I would open my hand and they appear in front of the sink, and I close my hand and they appear back to me. And I kept doing it to see how fast they could do it. And they were going very fast. The faster I did it, the faster they would appear and disappear. Until one time I said, I wonder if I open my hand with a little shake, will all five of them shake? And I opened my hand and I did a little shake like that. And all five of them appeared and they did a little shake like that. And I burst out laughing. I burst out laughing, man. And you could hear my laugh go like as if I was in the Grand Canyon. Ha 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 ha. Into eternity. Now, after the laugh, I felt like somebody was watching me. And then I heard a voice. And this voice was very kind of like, I would say, like a, you know how a parent would be watching over their child in a playground. And the parent might say, hey, don't run around the corner too fast, you might fall. Well, this voice said to me, if you don't go back now, you might have to stay. Now, it wasn't a command or an order or stuff like that. It was just telling me that your heart can't stay stopped for more than 20 minutes. Otherwise, you won't be able to go back to it. And so I had a choice at that moment. I had a choice to either stay there, and I called it Disneyland, Wonderland, or go back to the life, And for some odd reason, I felt like, yeah, but I don't, I'm not an old man. I said, I don't feel like I want to die now. So I pointed myself in the direction of the body. Now, here's another thing that was happening too that I didn't mention, or I forgot to mention, was that the moment I left my body, I don't know if you ever had Alka-Seltzer, where the Alka-Seltzer, you put it in water, you drip it like a tablet, and you put it in the water, and it dissolves, right? Well, information was swelling in my head, information. And the longer I stayed out, the more information I was getting. And I was getting information about everything. And a lot of this information was opposite of what I believed. Okay. And like I said, the longer I stayed out, the more information, the more information, the more information, the more information, more information, more information. It was just all filling me. Anyway, I pointed myself in the direction of the bed. I never looked at my face, by the way, because I was afraid that my face would have some distorted look of death. So I was scared to look at my face, but I knew I was out because I could see my legs and in the bed, and I'm standing up. So I pointed myself in the direction of the body, and I just literally jumped right onto the body. My heart did it like a double beat, and it started to beat again. And then I was back in my body. And that was the second major spiritual event in my life. Now, when I came back, I had all this information that was opposite of what I believed. I mean, incredible information about heaven, about hell, about Bible, about Jesus, about the earth, about souls, why we come here, about right and wrong, you name it, about what's going to happen on the earth in the future. Where I had a bunch of information, and also I came back with some kind of gifts that I discovered by accident. So after I came back in my body and stuff like that, um, this one was even more incredible. And I said I can't tell my colleagues that I work with about this. This is, you think before was gonna put me close to the cuckoo house. This is gonna make sure I have a permanent stay there if I tell them about this. So I didn't tell anybody, but anyway, I tried to go back to my normal life, and I went on to do concerts with my band, and we were in Canada, and I ended up going to this place called Mont Roland in Canada. There was a club up there, and it was open during the daytime, and we had a show to do there. It was a new club, but there was a snowstorm that day, so nobody was in the club except two waitresses and the band. So we were all sitting around the club having a beer, and we got bored waiting around hoping people would come in. So I called one of the waitresses and I said, "Hey, come on over here. I'm going to tell you your future for fun." It was supposed to be a joke. I said, I didn't know her at all. And I said, "Give me your left hand." And she gave me her left hand. And I said, your boyfriend is paraplegic. I said, he blames you for his handicap, even though it's not your fault. I said, 3 months from now, you're going to meet somebody and you're going to fall in love. And I said, after that, another 3 months, you're going to marry this person. And then I just let her hand go. And that was the joke. And I finished my beer. Now I didn't notice that she didn't say a word through the whole thing, not one word. And we came back to that club a year later, and this waitress was still working there, and she ran up to me and she said, "Did you know that everything you said was true?" I said, "No way." I said, "Your boyfriend was paraplegic?" She said, "Yes." I said, "And he blamed you for his handicap?" She said, "Yes." I said, 3 months later, you met somebody and you fell in love? She said, "Yes." And I said, and 3 months later, you got married? And then she didn't even answer. She just showed me the wedding ring. And then the hairs, man, went up my arm like crazy. And my band said, "Hey, man, what's going on with you? You turning into Nostradamus on us or something?" And I said, "I don't know, man. It's some strange things going on." And I said to myself, I said, "Man, am I turning into an alien since this near death experience, this NDE?" And I didn't know what to think. And then another thing happened where we when we do our shows, after our shows, we go to these places called like after hours, or we call it the after party. It's places that stay open past, but the clubs might close at 2 or 3. These clubs close at 9 or 10 in the morning. They stay open. So we had some friends, and one of the doormans was a friend of the band, but he was cool people. And I had a premonition about this guy that he shouldn't go out this weekend. I had it on Thursday. Now, I don't know why, but I had this feeling that stayed over me like a cloud over my head all day and all night that this particular person should not go out this weekend. They should stay home. Now, this guy is like another huge guy. He's a bouncer. He's huge. Nobody, I said, nobody's going to mess with this guy. I said, you got to be kind of mental crazy if you want to mess with this guy. Just looking at him, you got to be a nut. He's a huge guy. I struggled with myself to say, well, maybe I can't tell this guy, hey, don't go out. Who's going to mess with him? It's like telling somebody going to mess with the Hulk Hogan. Who's going to mess with that guy? Nobody. So I didn't tell him. I saw him on that Friday after my job, and everything seemed okay. So I said, maybe it's just you. You've been through a lot. You died. You had all these experiences, man. And maybe just feeling different or sensitive or something. So I didn't tell him. Now Sunday came, and we finished our job, and we went to the after hours. But he wasn't there. It was another bouncer that was there. And this bouncer was standing at the front door with tears rolling down his face. And I said, hey, man, what's wrong? And he said, you didn't hear? I said, no, hear what? He said, the other bouncer's dead. I said, dead? I said, what happened? He said, on Saturday night, he met this girl. And after his shift finished around, I don't know, 8:30 or whatever, he took her to a hotel. And she waited till he fell asleep, and she slashed his throat with a butcher knife. And by the time he woke up and realized what was happening, he had lost too much blood, lost consciousness, and died. They caught her, of course, but he was dead. And I ended up going to his funeral. And that made me feel guilty and horrible. And I said, never again, if I get a psychic impression about somebody, I'm all going to tell them, even if it's the president of the United States. I said, I don't care if they think I'm crazy. I don't care. I said, I'm going to tell them. I'm not going to have that on my conscience anymore. So I went to his funeral. And then after that, I started to know that I had these gifts that I could read people's energy. I could tell them things about their health. I learned later too that I had some healing abilities also that people can get well if they do certain things that I tell them to do. And so I started to help people, and that's when I started to know that I had these gifts that came back with me. And I do that now, and I have a website, and I'm helping people lead better lives and help them with sickness, illness, partners, all kinds of relationships, and all kinds of stuff like that.
We got a couple questions in the chat.
Okay.
There's a few. How did your approach to music shift after your spiritual experience? The same type of question is, how did your gifts affect your music and the playing, your writing, and connection with audiences?
Okay, well, before that, I was just a singer or a musician that was just super ambitious. I had to work with this one. I had to work with that one. I had to, I have to work with all these stars. I mean, I had to be there. I had to, meet these people. I had to play for them. I had to perform with them. Black Eyed Peas. I had to do this. And now, since my NDE, now I just do music out of just love. That if I make your day better because you came to my show and I raised your vibration, I'm happy. I don't really care so much about how popular the persons I'm playing with or if I'm number two on the chart of music or not. Now, what really touches me more is that, hey, I made a difference in your life, that you had a great time and you raised your vibration while you were listening to my show. And this is something that brings me joy and me to able to share what's in my heart musically with you. And that's how it affected me. So it made me approach music less in an ambitious way and more in a loving, fun way. Because before it was just, I had to be the best dancer, I had to be the best singer, I had to be the best saxophone player, I had to be with the top guys, BB King, I had to play with them, I had to play with, all these major people. But it was not necessarily out of love, it was more out of ambition, ego.
Do you still feel like you're connected with your mother? Do you feel like she
Yeah,
guides you?
well, my mother always guides me. I still feel her. But like she said to me, before she left. She said, I wouldn't recognize as much as I did that night that she's around, even though she's around. I feel her, but yeah, that night I really felt her because she was like so much visually present, energetically present. And now I just feel her sometimes. She comes around, I can feel the room shift, but it's not in a major way like it was that night she appeared. But she explained that to me before she left, actually.
She'll always be there with you.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you deal with skeptics
Well,
when you
I
when you
don't
try to
try to
explain this?
force, it's a fantastic thing that happened. And I understand if you don't believe me, you don't have to. I'm just here to offer the information and what happened to me. Now, I have downloads that are totally the opposite of what I used to believe about. I mean, it might make a few people upset, but this is what was given to me. And I was not religious at all. But what was given to me was that on the other side, there is no right or wrong. There's only perception. God loves you unconditionally. That means with no condition. God is only love. The other thing is that we are part of God, but we also are gods with a big G. We can have multiple lifetimes at the same time. The life you're having right now is like a small piece of your soul's fingernail. That's how powerful your soul is. And the reason why some people, when they die, they experience hell, it's because you're such a powerful God that whatever you believe in this life, you are creating on the other side. So when you go to the other side, the first things you're going to experience is what you believed in. Okay. So if you believe that I think there's a hell, or even if you were atheist, but you were secretly afraid that there might be a hell, you might have created it. And when you go on the other side and you end up in that hell, only two things are going to happen. One is either you're going to realize, hey, it's me creating all of this, and you leave. Or the other thing is you're going to cry out to God because you're going to be afraid and you're going to see all these goblins or whatever. And you're going to cry out to God, and God's going to come and say, okay, I take you out of your own creation. And he takes you out. And the thing is, you're going to be so grateful. You're going to think, God has saved me. I'm going to be a real good Christian now when I go back to life. But the real point is that if God was to create hell, no one would get out. And in the Christian religion, nobody's supposed to get out. You're supposed to, once you're there, you're supposed to be there forever, right? So why is there hundreds and hundreds of people getting out and coming back to tell about it? That's because God never created hell. But God gives you free will. And if you believe that there's a hell and you create it with your own mind, God doesn't stop you. You have free will here and you have free will on the other side. And it's the same for heaven. Now, some people believe in heaven so hard that when they go, they pass away. When they go to the other side, they go to heaven and they might see Jesus, they might see Virgin Mary, they might see a few angels. But after a while, they start to realize that there's nothing happening here. And there's hardly nobody there because they believe that people weren't good enough to get to heaven. So there's very little people there. And after a while, they start to notice, hey, there's nothing going on. I mean, absolutely nothing. And they realize that it's them that who created this heaven, because on the other side, all the places are heaven because it's all made from God. It's all made of God.
You nailed so many points that so many NDEers come back with. We're all a fractal of a source. And just like you had five of yous, you have
Right,
fractals of yourselves.
right,
And then you
exactly.
fractal into past lives, which are all simultaneously
Right,
happening because time isn't real.
that's right.
You hit every bit of what everyone says and experiences.
Yeah, I mean, my downloads, they totally were the opposite of what I believed. And here's the other thing, there is no hierarchy on the other side. There's no hierarchy on the other side. That means Jesus is not closer to God than you. Virgin Mary is not closer to God than you. Gabriel, the angel Gabriel, is not closer to God than you. And here's the other thing that shocks a lot of my clients, as they say, well, what about Hitler? He did all those horrible things. God's going to welcome him with loving arms when he dies? And the answer is yes. And the other thing is, why? Because this is a game. This is what I got in my downloads. This life we're leading right now is actually a game. And it was actually created by other souls, that so other souls can experience what they are not, and experience, period. That's it. It's not about a school. It's not about some kind of evolution, because the soul on the other side is perfect. This is in my downloads. It's perfect. It doesn't need that. But the thing is, we come here to experience what we're not. For example, if let's say you're white and you're in a white room and all you see is white, you're not going to even realize that you're white unless you see a blue room or a black room, an orange room, a green room. Then you're going to say, hey, I'm the white room. It's the same. On the other side, you only experience power and love. For you, that's all there is. So that's normal. But when you come here and you experience powerlessness, helplessness, feeling weak, no love, you see, this is all opposites of what you are not.
You didn't mention it in your experiences, but did you have any sense of life review?
The thing was, I probably was about the only thing I got downloads about it. I did not experience a life review because I probably was not there long enough. I was about to. That's why God said, "Well, yeah, if you don't go back now, you'll have to stay." And I think from that point, I would have experienced a life review.
So a lot of people, they argue, is maybe not argue, but if hell isn't real, then how does Hitler get away with all this scotch free? But the truth is, he doesn't,
Well, the
right?
thing was,
With
let
the
me
life
explain.
review.
Let's explain what a life review is. Life review is you are going to experience what the others felt while dealing with you. Like I'm going to experience what you're feeling doing this interview, how you felt while you were interviewing me. I'm going to feel exactly what you felt, and I'm also going to feel what I felt. That's the life review. So imagine a person like Hitler who made millions suffer and torture and was fearful, and they died, and they were died a disgusting way. He's going to feel that from millions. Do you know how that's going to feel? That's going to be horrible. That's the life review. But it's not, the life review is not to punish you. It is to review. That's all. God is not judging you in the life review. Your angels are not judging you. Your guides are not judging you in the life review. The only person that may judge you is you. You might say, I could have done that better, and that's not an easy feeling, but it's not going to last forever. And the other thing is, because on the other side, they're vibrating on a higher vibration, things are moving faster. Even though when you're on the other side, you don't feel they're moving faster. You feel like they're moving just like here, but reality, they're moving much faster. It's like the propeller of a plane. If you see the propeller of a plane, it looks like it disappeared, right? But if you stick your finger in there, you're going to know it's there. It's the same for the soul. The soul is vibrating on such a high vibration that to our naked eye, it looks like it disappeared, but it's actually there. And the thing is, remember, this is a game. When you take off these clothes and this bodysuit, your essence is made out of what? Love. That's all.
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions I ask everyone. In your definition, what's the meaning of life?
The meaning of life for me is to experience and also come back to knowing who you are, which is love. And if you can do that, I think you win in life, because love is the key to this game. It's love. And that's what I think. And you can enjoy this life when you're on that vibration of love. And it could be the most beautiful experience ever in the physical.
If you had one message to the world, what would it be?
I would say right now, people, we're in transition. That means we're going from 3D to 5D. 3D is duality, good, bad, and D is going to be a higher vibration. It will be 20% of your soul's power in the physical body. We are transitioning, so you want to know about vibrations. There's only two, low or high. Low vibrations is hate, fear, anger, judgment, depression, confusion, stress. And high vibrations are love, joy, laughing, smiles, nature, animals, babies, creating of any kind, gratitude. So you want to be more in high vibrations, because this earth is going to split. It's going to go to two timelines. One timeline is going to be 3D, the other timeline is going to be 50. Okay, and in 5D, there'll only be peace and love. There'll be no killing of animals, plants, or people. We'll have total telepathy. We'll be able to communicate with rocks, trees, all animals. We'll have technology that will blow our minds, because nothing will be held from humanity. So, and you'll also be able to visit the other side and come back. We actually can do that even now. Another guy that I know is teaching people to do that is Darius Wright. So this is what awaits us. So the earth is actually getting better. So don't think that it's getting worse. It's actually getting better. But people who are on low vibration and they're on a planet that's rising in vibration, they're having a hard time. Like two batteries, positive and negative. You put them together, they separate. So a person that's on low vibration, what are they going to do when they're on a planet that's rising in vibration? That makes that person go crazy, right? So the thing is, you want to be more aware of your vibration. You want to be more aware of your conversation. You don't want to have low vibration conversation. That means talking about things that are horrible or bad. That's not going to help you, even if it's in the past, even if it's true. If it brings you down on low vibration, it's not helpful.
We got a added comment in question. The comment says, I can tell his healing abilities through his voice. It's soft, soothing, can bring anyone out of anxiety attack. That being said, can you leave us with a few words of encouragement or inspiration to carry us into the week?
Well, one thing is, if I hope you're going to put this in your descriptions below, if you go to truthenergyreadings.com, which is my website, you can book a session with me. I do energy reading, I do health, I do healing sessions also, and you can talk to me about any subject. I also help people with suicides, to stop suicides. I help people with marital problems. I help people with psychological problems. I help people with everyday problems, money problems, any problems that may occur, and also any spiritual questions you may have. So feel free. And also, I want to say before I go, I'm doing a retreat in Egypt for 7 days where you'll be on the Nile River. We'll be going to different energy sites that has special energy in it. There'll be holistic breathing at this retreat. There'll be yoga. There'll be meditation. I'll be doing energy reading and psychic training because I believe everybody has psychic abilities, but they're just not awakened. And also, there'll be 4 nights on this ship, and the ship has like a 5-star room, so you'll have your own room and you'll be on the Nile River. And also there'll be 3 nights on a boutique hotel, 5-star rooms, and I'll be also performing music in the cafe at this hotel. And you'll be visiting sites all over Egypt, and also there'll be balloon rides in Egypt also. So this is a 7-8 day retreat. And if you become a member of my website, you get a free discount on the price. So I just want to say that.
I appreciate you accepting my invite and coming here and sharing your experiences and your knowledge, and it's been great.
Hey Tyler, thanks for having me on your program, man. And I really appreciate the work you're doing and bringing more knowledge to the people. And I really enjoy what you're doing for helping people to acknowledge the true power they have within them and also what's going on in our world today.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey guys, thanks for joining me on the Light You Are podcast. If you want to support this channel, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you never miss an episode. Also, if you haven't checked out my children's book, The Light You Are, it's available only on Amazon. We're all just trying to remember who we are, the light we are.